Good morning. Yeah, I'm back here again. I'm just tidying up my mess. This is like I've done pretty much, by the time I leave, I will have done a full 24 hours here for the first time in months. I think the last time I spent a night here was November. I've been back once about 6 weeks ago just to check on the place, make sure it was still here and so on. And it is. And it's in reasonable condition. In fact, it's not in as good condition as it looks. It looks all right. I expected, after the winter we had with a lot of windstorms and stuff, I expected to have lost a lot more thatch. And it wasn't quite as holy. It is quite holy. I mean, just spinning around. I'm spinning around sort of horizontally at eye level, and you can see that's the sleeping side, so that's pretty solid. That's the head end of my bed, which I rigged that canopy back in November, and that works really well just to hold that heat in, keep that draft out. I'd started moving all the spare rocks that were left over from building the stove to block in that end a little bit. The stove is still functioning, but I need to get the fire mortar back into work and reseal here and there. But it's still very efficient. I've been making myself a brew several times during the night, cooked on it, and I'm just warming up before finally packing and going. But you can see around the base there, it's only an equipment storage area really. It's let's say it's ventilated. And this has brought me to a conclusion, which is that I am going to abandon this camp. Let me be clear. When I say abandon, unless the person who co-built it with me wants to use it regularly, I will take it down because that's the responsible thing to do. There's all sorts of stuff here that shouldn't be here, like bits of metal, bits of artificial cordage, and so on. I think the problem with a brushwood shelter is that it needs absolutely constant maintenance. When I say constant, I mean every time I come, I could easily spend the whole time just rethatching. I've just had a pretty cold night, despite the fact that the breeze is pretty well blocked off in here, and the stove functions well and all of that. But what I hadn't realised is that whilst there's not too many holes in the thatch as a whole is much thinner. It did have a good sort of 10 inches to a foot thickness pretty much everywhere last time I spent a night in here. And now it's decomposed, so it's thinner. Some of it has been blown off, or whatever. There's just not as much thickness there. It's not as insulated. Last time I spent a night in here, I was pleased to note how I could get the fire going well, and the heat wouldn't instantly leave the place. It would circulate. It was doing that a little bit overnight, but really not much. I did need to gather a good sized wood pile, and I used it all. I just had enough. And basically the whole of that area there, so I'll try and position so I'm not getting sun flare, but that's facing the morning sun. The whole of that area there up to the top of the picture was filled with cut wood yesterday evening, and there isn't a shred of it left. And some of that was stuff that I'd brought in myself. It was decent seasoned oak, little chunks from years ago. It was just enough. And at one point the fire went out about, what was it, 2 o'clock in the morning. I was awake instantly. It was cold. So yeah, the problem with a brushwood shelter is everything is a compromise, and it needs a lot of maintenance. you know, I'd like to find somewhere else. I think whether this landowner, I don't even know who the landowner is, whether they know I'm here or not. You know, you get to the point where it is taking the piss just to stay there and make use of their resource, and hope that no one gets upset by you being there. So I'd like to spread that little blessing around maybe, but I need to find a new area, somewhere else that nobody goes. And there's another type of shelter I want to build, and it's a type I'm much more familiar with from my days at festivals and, you know, hanging out with New Age travellers back in the 80s and 90s. It seems that no one is doing them anymore. That can't be right. I'm talking about the one that makes people titter if they don't know what I'm on about. The sort of shelter which is a traditional British shelter for the wilderness, which is called a bender. Or some people call it a tinker tent. I know it's a bender because it's made of bent poles. So I'd really like to put a bender together, because I know a bender is very, very good for strength, doesn't use much in way of resources, and they can be made warm with relatively little effort. So yeah, I'd like to find a situation where I can build myself a bender, and I'd like to do a video of that, because, you know, that is a traditional British outdoor shelter that, you know, people are not really doing that much anymore. So I'd like to do one and actually build one and being filmed building one, so that people can see how to do it, so I can spread a little knowledge around. So I might do one more night up here, because I do like the place. It's just, I think over the year I've found its shortcomings, and cold, I'm not a spring chicken. I can't really do cold anymore, and I don't think it's necessary to be able to do cold if you're doing a decent shelter. The whole point is to avoid that. So I love this little spot, but I think it served its time. So if it was just up to me, the next video I'd make would be of me doing an overnighter, and then the following morning you'd see me taking it down. And I would like to video that, just so that people can see that it's done. But I've loved it. I really, really do like this place. And I mean, listen to my soundtrack. It doesn't really get much better than that. It's early spring and there's wood anemones all over the forest floor. There's always surprises for me here. And yeah, I'll miss the place. I even saw a heron, which is good news, because I used to see, years ago, I used to see loads of little trout in this stream down here, and I haven't seen one since I've been back here. But herons, they're not given to wasting their time. They won't hunt somewhere that there's no food for them. And it was just, what, 50 yards away down below in the stream. So that must mean I must be missing the fish or frogs or whatever it is it's eating. But it was there, in its statuesque position, staring down at the water, which was great to see. And I haven't seen a heron here before. So there's lovely. Anyway, time to go home. Over and out.